Okay guys, so I'm gonna do the 10 common mistakes beginners make when learning Python. So this list is a compilation of mistakes I've seen with, I'd say, around 100 students I've worked with in the last few years. So this is not a random list, this is based on experience. If you are a beginner, I'm pretty sure you're gonna make a couple of them. So if you pay attention at this video, you're gonna avoid a lot of trouble and you're gonna be able to recover faster from mistakes. In the description, I have a link with an ebook with the fastest way to become a developer without a degree. So if you're interested in that, check the description below. Without further ado, let's get started. So this is very common. Let's say I wanna add two numbers. So I ask a student to add two numbers. It's super common to see, let me just check, it's recording, it is. It's very common to see students doing a plus b and that's it. What is the problem with that? So let's run this code. So it's on top of mistakes. And I'm gonna run mistake one.py. So nothing happened. So that's in a certain way good because there's no error. But my goal was to add two numbers, right? Did I add two numbers? In a certain way I did, but I didn't store the addition in a variable. So that information is lost forever. I can't access the result of this sum. So this is more common than you might think. If you're not a beginner, then you might be thinking, or if you're a beginner but a little bit more advanced, you might be thinking, oh, that's silly. But if you're just starting, you will do this mistake at least once. So if you wanna do anything programming, you need to assign it to a variable. You can't just add values like that. So you can either update a to be a plus b. So let's see what that looks like. So if I print a later on, a will be a plus b, so 3 plus 4. Now I can print that and that's stored somewhere. So you need to store the results of your computations in memory. So that's mistake number one. Mistake number two, not understanding how return works. So I'm assuming you've at least seen what a function is. If you haven't, learn that and then come back to this video. And an important concept that is really hard for beginners to understand is the concept of return. What return does is it returns a value to whoever called the function. So calling the function is activating the function, utilizing the function. If you don't call the function, nothing happens, which is another mistake we'll see soon. But let's take a look at this. Take a look at this and see what do you think it's gonna happen. Stop the video and think for a second. If your answer was it's gonna say hi and hello, you still don't quite understand how return works. So return, basically, let's run this, Python 3 mistake2.py. Hi. So only hi was printed. Why? Once I return, anything that goes after that doesn't get run by the compiler, which is this program that runs your Python code. It doesn't get run at all. So what I often see is people returning and then they want to do other stuff here. So I don't know, x equals 2 plus 3. This won't get executed at all. If you return, you're done. So really make sure you only return if you know you're done with the function at that point, okay? This is super common, so try to avoid that at all costs because it's preventable if you watch this video attentively. So let's run this. This prints hi and hello because return comes after the print hello. But if it prints before, let's say I print even before hi. If I print before hi, nothing gets printed. So that's mistake number two. Mistake number three. Calling a function before declaring the function. So you call the function by using the function name, but I often see students calling it before you define it. So this will actually cause an error. Mistake 3. And then students are like, why is it not defined? Because you gotta first define the function, then you can call the function. And another common mistake is students not calling, I'll merge these two mistakes into one. Not calling the function at all, nothing happens, and then they're like, what happened? Nothing happened because the way a function works is the code inside of the function only works if you call it. If you don't call it, it doesn't get run at all. So if I say hello here, then print will get run. Otherwise, nothing will happen. So this is super common. I think it's really hard for beginners to grasp how a function works because it breaks the linearity of your program being run. So it's not, the way it works is not, you're not printing 3, 4, 5, 6. So let me actually say print hello. Stop the video for a second. What do you think will get run first? Hi or hello? Did you think about it? So actually hello gets printed before. Why? Because this only runs after you call it. And you call line 11, which comes after line 10. So it doesn't matter that the function hello was defined before the print hello. This code won't run until we call it. So this is something really hard for beginners to understand because you're basically breaking the linearity of code. We're used to just reading an essay, reading top to bottom. Your code often has breaks into how it works. So it doesn't necessarily go to top to bottom. It might go to a function, then it comes back, then to another file and it comes back. So it doesn't go necessarily top to bottom, okay? So that's mistake number 3. Mistake number 4, which is super common. Students have a hard time learning about while loop. The hardest thing is understanding that if you don't break this condition, the loop will continue indefinitely. So this is a short code. Let me comment this out. Lines 3 to 6 is a short code that counts the number of digits. So if you don't know how this works, I'll quickly explain. This is basically extracting the last digit so actually let me say count some digits. Let me change this to some digits. So this will sum the digits of a number. So this should give 0 plus 2 plus 5 plus 3, which is 10. This will add the last digit, okay? So this will add 0. But what often happens is the following. Oops, running the wrong one. Mistake 4. Count digits is not defined. Where is it? I think I didn't save. Yes. So do you see that this is stuck? This is because of the infinite loop. My condition, x, is not getting modified. So x will always be greater than 0. I'm not modifying x. So in a while loop, every iteration, every loop, you need to find a way to get closer to the ending condition. Otherwise, you're never ending the condition. So what do you gotta do? So in this case, you gotta chop off the last digit. So you chop off this until it's 0. Okay? So what is missing here is the x equals x divided by 10. This chops off the last digit. So if you don't chop off the last digit until it's 0, this will keep running forever. So if you create a while loop, make sure you have some line that gets closer to your ending condition. Otherwise, the loop keeps on going and your code is gonna break. The same happens here on lines 11 to 12. So I want I to be less than 10. So at some point I has to be equal or greater to 10 in order for me to exit the while loop. but I'm not modifying I, so I will always be less than 10. So let's actually remove, let me comment this out so that code gets run. And we got an infinite loop. So what we gotta do is to change I to increment until it eventually becomes equal or greater than 10, which is the condition that breaks this. So if I run this, observe that it stopped. It printed hello 10 times and I'm done. So very common mistake. Students forget all the time to get closer, some line that takes you closer to the to breaking this while loop. Okay? Mistake number 5. We're doing top 10. There is no like order of most common. They're all interchangeable, but all very common. So often students want to do something like sum two integers, sum two numbers. Okay? And they use result inside of the function. And then they just call it and print result. Let's see what happens here. Name result is not defined. What happens is any variable inside of a function stops existing after the function is done. So after you return result, you don't have access to result on line 8. Result, you have one result inside of lines 2 to 4 and another result on 8. They do have the same name. That's what mixes up a lot of people. But in memory, they're different entities. So once you're done with this, you can't access the result from the function. So this doesn't exist. So that's why he's saying it's not defined. What you really wanted to do is to get the value that was returned. In this case, it will return 6, which is the sum of A plus B. Store it somewhere. So let's call this sum result. And then you can print the sum result. Okay? 6. If you don't do this, this information gets lost. The sum two numbers. You need to sum this returns, and this entire thing is replaced by 6. But where is this 6 at? You need to store in a variable. So you need to say something like sum result, and then you print it, okay? Otherwise, you keep getting this mistake, and this is super common, super common. Mistake number 6. Mistake number 6. Not returning at all. So you did fix the problem of like assigning to a variable, so you can reuse that value later, but you never return anything. So if I run this, sum two numbers instead of sum. If I run this, I get none, and then students are like, why did I get none? None is because you didn't return none. So when you call the function, nothing was returned, which in Python is a none, and X is none. So if you don't return, you don't get anything back, okay? So this fixes the problem. But not returning at all is a super common mistake. So another very common mistake is mistake 7, which is calling the function with different number of arguments. So observe here that I have two arguments, a equals 3, b equals 5. I called the function with a and b with two arguments, but I forget to put a and b here. Okay, so don't forget, and you get this mistake, positional arguments, blah blah blah, and I see this mistake a lot. So always double check if you have the right number of arguments, or try to memorize or learn about this error, because you see this often if you forget about that. Okay, mistake 8. Mistake 8 is, let's say you want to sum numbers from 1 to 10. So let me call this 10, and then I want to sum the numbers. So 0 plus 1 plus 2 plus 3. Let me actually do 10, so 10 but not including 10. So let me call this function. Let me make 5 to make my life easier. 5. So this, what's the sum of the numbers from 0 to 5 not inclusive? 0 plus 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, which is equal to 7, 9, 10. But if I run this, I won't get 10. And let's see why. Oops, I want to run problem 8. I get 1, which is kind of weird, right? Actually, I want to sum I. So I get 0. Why do I get 0? See, but I wanted to get 10. Because the return, so returning, mistake number 8 is returning from a function before you should. You only are done summing the numbers from 0 to 5 after you're done with the for loop. So if you return here, remember that return stops the function forever, automatically. So you just add 0, because the first value of I will be 0, just add 0 to sum num, and you stop. So to get the entire sum, return has to be on the same indentation level of for loop, meaning outside of the for loop. So if we run this, we now get 10. Very common mistake, the wrong placement of your return. Mistake number 9 is using the function, the name of the functions as a variable. So for example, the name of the function is some numbers, and then people use some numbers inside of the function as a variable, or they return some numbers. So this is the name of the function. Inside, don't use that name again unless you do something a bit more advanced in the future called recursion. But if you're watching this video, you don't want to use, as a rule of thumb, don't use the same name of function for variables. This will only cause trouble to your code. You're not going to understand why you're going to get a recursion problem. You don't even know what recursion is. So make sure don't use this function name inside of the function as a verb. And finally, not understanding different kinds of loops. So people often make a mistake of this first loop, which is a for each loop. So the way this works in Python is this will print each element of R. So think of this notation as print each element, that will be called X, that is in R. So if I run this, mistake 10. Did I ever run mistake 9? I think I didn't, right? Yeah, but it would give you an error. Okay, so mistake 10. This prints each item of the array. Another thing you can do is to print the index, and that's how the function for I in range comes into play. So one thing people don't quite understand is this range thing. So what is range? Let me show it to you guys. If you do range here at the terminal, you will print this range 10 to 11. So to see what it actually does, you need to say it, cast it to a list. So this is what's happening in your code. This range is creating a list from 0 to 9 and looping through each one of them. So basically this is loop through a list from 0, it always starts at 0 if you don't give an initial value, all the way to length of R not included. So in this case 4. So that will give me 0, 1, 2, 3. And that's what this should print. So people have a really hard time. So one thing is the index, which is the position of each element. The other thing is the element. You gotta know, if you wanna master Python, you gotta know, memorize all these different kinds of for loops. So Python 3, mistake 10. R is not defined. Yes, because I comment this out. And here we go. 0, 1, 2. So what is 0, 1, 2? The position of 10, the position of 9, the position of 3, the position of 2. If I do this loop, this is a for each loop, I loop through each item. And finally, I can print the items, but with the index. So I can say, hey, grab me the value at index 0. Grab me the value at index 1 using the square brackets. So that should print 10, 9. So basically this is the same as the first loop. You gotta know both. The first one might be simpler, so might be more recommended in most occasions, but you can also use this one as well. You see this a lot. You gotta practice all these kinds of for loops. So if I say print over the values, you should either use this one or this one. Print over the indexes, and you should memorize. A lot of people say like for x in length r, they forget the range. So make sure you know by heart how to do these operations. Okay? So I hope you guys enjoyed the 10 most common beginner mistakes in Python, and see you guys in the next videos.